Hello, hello! This is Otto from Bass Brotherz and welcome to our first tutorial. I think in this first tutorial we are going to share some of our knowledge about chords and leads. And I already opened up a project of ours, which is basically our project when we test out new melodies. So we have a basic template where we can put chords, bass line, harmonics, and of course the top lead. And it's somewhat mixed down, so it sounds almost like a final product, but it still needs a few tweaks here and there when we are going to implement the MIDIs to our, the true project. So, in this project we have two layers. We have the chords layer and the lead layer. And we have already routed these different layers to one fruity layer. So we can just use one MIDI to play all the layers at the same time. There's plenty of tutorials on YouTube how to do that, and it's quite simple, but it's not the purpose of this tutorial, so we're gonna skip that. I've labeled all the different layers, and for example chords, they're all green, as in here. And bassline is purple, of course purple here, and leads and harmonics are yellow, as you can see in here. And we have the basses, for example chord basses, they are labeled red, and lead basses labeled red as well. And delays and reverbs are in purple, so I think it's easier for you to understand which is which when we have labeled the colors correctly. So I think we should first look at the chords presets and how we did those, and then the bass line and the leads, and finally we move on to the mixer section. So every layer is made in Silent 1, and there's nothing too fancy about this, but we're gonna share some of our thought project, what we think about when we do new chords or leads. So basically this is sound like this. Let me just mute the other ones. So this is the first chords layer, and it's, as you can hear, it's quite clean, so not too much distortion or detune. A little bit of course, but not too much. And if you like to copy our presets, you can pause the video here and look at what we've done. Basically it's a super saw which has been fine-tuned with pitch. Both oscillators have been slightly pitched differently, so it creates more, I don't know if you say natural, but more like analog feeling. Then we open the attack a little bit. We don't want it too snappy, and of course a little bit of release as well, so it makes it more smoother. Then we added pitch envelope, so it in the start of each note it's gonna pitch a little bit up, and then it's going to lower down to the the same pitch as the note is in the MIDI. And we have a slow rate pitch LFO with a sine wave, and it's ever so slightly pitched, so it sounds a little bit like it's not in key, but it still is. It brings a little warmer sound, I guess. And on the B part we have very quiet white noise on the background, and we have one octave lower one voice saw, so it brings out more the mono signal. Basically, every layer is made with the same principles. Only difference is that each one has a little different texture. So the layer 2 sounds like this. So it's a little bit more dirtier, I guess. We used a square wave here, and saw wave here, and not so many voices. So because you don't need that many voices, to be honest, you can get more richer sound when you process the chords in the mixer channel. And B part is empty. We have the same settings here in the amplitude envelope as in the first layer, so we just copied and pasted here, and basically almost the same mod envelope. LFO is a little bit different, so there's the maximum rate with a noise waveform, and a little bit more pitched and a little bit less gain. So this brings the the dirty sound you hear. And there you go. On the third layer, which sounds like this. It's almost same as the last one, except this is 1 octave higher, and I guess more thin, and again a little bit cleaner than the last one. Basically nothing new here. Only difference is that we made the oscillators a little bit differently. Everything in the amplitude envelope and in the pitch LFO and pitch modulation is basically the same as in the last one. A little bit different, so it brings a different character, of course. And the last chord layer sounds like this. So this is a little bit fuller and fatter sound, and this is quite heavily detuned supersaw. Again, the same amplitude envelopes and same pitch modulation. There's no pitch LFO or anything, and there's of course again the mono layer, which brings out the mono signal. And everything all together, the chords sound like this. There you go. It's not the final product, but it's good enough to hear if we test out some melodies and if we like it or not. Okay, the bass line is quite simple. Basically, it's just one voice saw wave with the same pitch modulation and amplitude as in the chords, so they more blend in together. You can of course add a sine wave here. Let's try it out. It brings out more the sub frequencies, but in this case, because this is a melody test project, so we don't want to focus on fine-tuning everything together perfectly. In the final project we might use 7 different chords layer and a few different bassline layers, but these are the basics that you would need to get the almost complete sound. And now the leads. We have 2 layers of leads here and 1 layer of harmonics. And the lead layer sounds like this, the first lead layer. Sorry, I'm still muting stuff here. Okay, so this is basically, again, we are trying to match everything with the chords. We have the same pitch modulation here, and now when we look at the amplitude envelope, we have a little bit more attack and a little bit more release to make it sound a little bit more softer. And of course, if you want it more punchy, you can always drag the attack and the release down. It's a matter of, taste. And we have this pitch envelope here, which all makes the dirty sound. And that's more like what we like. And small detune, and there's, again, on the second page, we have another mono oscillator. The other lead layer. Again, pretty much the same as the other one, except it has a little bit different texture. We follow the same principles as before, so I think there's no need to, talk same thing over and over again. Then we have the harmonics, which have slightly different notes than the lead. Basically, these are almost like the chords, but they give the lead more, I don't know if you say chordy or more fuller sound, more harmonics. On its own, it sounds quite bad, but all together, when we play everything together, it sounds, complete. And now when we play everything together, they sound like this. Sorry, my computer seems to be handling this quite badly, so there's little stutters here and there. Oh, by the way, this melody is from our track called Creatures of Darkside. And I guess next we move on to the mixer side and show a little bit how we have mixed these things together and what is the thought process behind those. So firstly, we have assigned every single layer into different mixer tracks. So here are the 4 chords, here are the 2 leads, and here are the harmonics. The 4 chords go to chord bus, as you can see from here. Everything is routed there and not into the master channel. Leads, the same thing. We have routed the leads to the lead bus and also the harmonics, and not on the master bus. Master channel. Then the buses, leads and chords have been routed the same way. We have routed the chord bus to lead final send and main reverb and main delay. Same with the leads. And they are not going to the master. The reverb and delay have been routed to lead final send and not to the master. And now the lead final send is only routed to master. So first, the layer goes to a bus, the bus goes to final send, so we get the dry signal to the final send channel, and of course we need the reverb and delay to make it sound more wet, so we routed them there also. And then when we want to mix everything together and make the reverb and delay sound, unified with the dry signal, we routed the reverb and delay also to the final send, where we process everything together. So every layer has basically the same thing. We only EQ'd it once, and every layer is of course EQ'd differently, but mostly what we do, we cut out the low signal because we don't need that, and a little bit boost here and there. It's all just use your ears. I don't think we are any professionals to say how you should do it. We might do things wrong, but this is how we do it. So everything is EQ'd differently to make room for each other and blend in together. And in the bus we have another low cut. We want the low end removed, and then we have multiband compression, some saturation, and the after EQ. We use quite a lot mid-side EQ to bring out the mono too hard word to say. So it sounds better on the mono and on the big systems. So we boost a little bit where the mono signal is more needed. That's quite simple. We use the same process in the final product as well, but this is not fine-tuned to perfection. It's more like almost there. The bass line is only routed to master. But if you use you have like 3 bassline layers, you can also route them to bassline bus and the bus then to master. In our opinion, you don't need any, reverb or delay on the bassline. We try to keep it clean and mono. So here we have the same process. We have EQ. We have cut out some of the highs first. Then we have a multiband compressor, saturation. Here we have mixed down a little more distortion to make more harmonics. And again, a little EQ, and then we wanted to, well, basically this is a useless EQ. You can do the same things here. You don't have to use a ton of EQ, but with that anyway. So the leads, we did the same basic thing as in chords, except we didn't remove the low end right away because there was not much of it. We removed it in the lead bus. And the reason why we have used Fruity Parametric EQ2 here and not the Fab Filter one is because my computer is not that powerful, so I'm trying to save CPU as much as possible. Fruity EQ does this a little bit better, I guess. And again, the same thought process. First EQ, and we remove the unnecessary low end, multiband compression, some saturation, and of course when saturation and multiband they bring out more low end, you need to cut again, and then we just EQ to match everything up. Here is, I think, more radical EQ to boost out the MIDI frequencies, the mono frequencies. Then we have the reverbs and delays, and we use Valhalla Room, and this is all the way wet. You can copy these settings if you have Valhalla Room. And then we EQ the low end away because it's it sounds quite muddy. And of course we cut away the high frequencies as well to make it blend in more into the background, so the reverbs and delays are not in your face, they are more in the background. Again, compression, saturation, and the final EQ to cut out the unnecessary things. Then we have fruity limiters here, which we use to sidechain everything. We have used this to trigger when the lead bus triggers a note, it triggers the sidechain compression. We have few different, and they all work differently. For example, here, when we play the melody, this is quite slow working, so it brings out the tail of the reverb long after when the last note has been hit. We have 1300 milliseconds of release here. And for example, in the first one, we have really fast reverb, release and attack. So this basically just cuts out the first hits and only when the notes hit. So basically we want to use the fast ones first. So we cut out the first little peaks and tame the reverb a little bit. And the second one is basically the slower one, which brings out the reverb when you stop playing the melody. You can hear it coming back up again when we stop playing the melody. And the last one is just a minor tweaking, maybe a little bit more, taming the tail a little bit more. Same thing with the delay. We are using Echo Boy as a delay, but of course you can use any delay you want. We have quite long feedback and a little bit saturation here. Same thing here as in the reverb. We want compression, saturation, and basically almost the same kind of EQs. And here is a little tweak at the end to make everything mix up more. And sidechain compressions, these are basically the same settings as in reverb. And finally, when we have routed everything into the final send, we do the same process all over again. We EQ and cut out the unnecessary low end. More multiband compression, saturation, correcting EQ, and then the final tweaks. We have Maximus here at the end to kind of pre-master the whole lead. Basically this is unnecessary. I don't think we use these kind of things in our projects because you are already doing some of the mixing and mastering of the leads before this, but this is just a project when we are testing the melodies, so there's never going to be any kicks here, and we can master this as a kind of like final product. Maybe one thing, we have just a limiter at the end of the master on this project only, because when we make a full track project we don't have anything on the master. We do the mixing project and the mastering project differently, but those are for another video. So basically that's it. I hope you learned something from us, these are not things that we have everything learned by ourselves. We had a lot of help. We also watched a lot of tutorials and trying to learn from them, and we also have had some teachers who have been taught us how to make these sidechain reverbs and delays, and what would be the best way to approach when making chords and leads. I can still show you the MIDIs, and maybe we do another tutorial on how to make chords, how do we make leads, how do we make bass lines, and so on. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again in another tutorial.